The business plot was a conspiracy in 1933 that involved several prominent business figures. These individuals reportedly aimed to overthrow President Franklin D. Roosevelt and replace him with an authoritarian right wing leader. Central to this plot was Major General Smedley Butler, a highly decorated Marine Corps officer. Butler was approached to lead the coup, but instead of participating, he exposed the conspiracy to Congress. The plot was largely fueled by discontent among elite business circles with Roosevelt's New Deal policies, which they saw as socialist and a threat to capitalism. Butler testified that the conspirators, including Gerald C. McGuire, a Wall Street bond salesman, and several others, planned to create a super organization that could rival the U.S. government. Butler stated that they promised him control over a 500,000 strong army of veterans to march on Washington, D.C., and install him as the leader. This army would then force Roosevelt into a figurehead position, with the real power lying with a proposed new Secretary of General Affairs, which they envisioned as a dictatorial role. The main figures linked to the plot were connected to Wall Street firms, and it was claimed that substantial financial backing would be available for this coup. However, direct evidence connecting some financiers was not fully corroborated during congressional hearings. Gerald McGuire, the man who initially approached Butler, had allegedly spent time in Europe studying authoritarian movements and returned to the U.S. with ideas about replicating these regimes. Butler's claims were investigated by the McCormick-Dickstein Committee, a precursor to the much more widely known House Un-American Activities Committee. His testimony received significant attention, but the committee found insufficient evidence to indict any of the supposed key players in the plot. McGuire denied the charges, and others whom Butler implicated were never formally called to testify. The committee acknowledged that discussions had taken place regarding the establishment of a fascist organization, but it stopped short of concluding that there was a legitimate, immediate threat. Despite the lack of concrete legal action, Butler's testimony was highly influential in publicizing concerns about the rise of extremist sentiments in certain business sectors. After the business plot was exposed, some theorists speculate that its backers sought subtler, legal ways to achieve similar goals. Instead of a coup, theorists argue they may have used lobbying, media influence, and financial pressure to shape policies that aligned with their interests, weakening New Deal programs over time. The belief that dinosaurs aren't real is a conspiracy theory that's been swirling around as long as dinosaurs have been known to humans. Those who promote the idea that dinosaurs are a hoax argue that the entire concept is fabricated and perpetuated for reasons ranging from financial profit to propaganda against faith. One key aspect of the dinosaurs aren't real theory is the argument that we should be finding dinosaur bones all over the place. The idea that builders should be finding dinosaur bones during excavations every single day is common according to claims circulating online. The suggestion is that the scarcity of discovered bones, especially outside of controlled paleontological digs, is a sign of fraud. Skeptics often question why no average Joe has stumbled upon dinosaur bones while digging his garden. The implication is that these fossils are planted only for the benefit of paleontologists and museums. Yeah, that's right. According to this theory, only these high priests of paleontology are allowed to enter the quote-unquote bone zone. Conspiracists also bring up the argument that dinosaur bones somehow turned into fossil fuels, a claim that serves to ridicule the accepted paleontological processes. Also, I'll be discussing this conspiracy theory about fossil fuels shortly, so stay tuned. The idea of dinosaurs as mythical creatures akin to dragons also plays into the conspiratorial narrative. Skeptics often compare dinosaurs to other mythological animals, questioning whether they are simply a creation of collective imagination or misunderstandings of historical artifacts. Some point out that there were no mentions of dinosaurs prior to the 1800s, which they argue makes the entire narrative suspicious. The term dinosaur itself was coined by Richard Owen in 1842, and the first significant fossils were discovered around that time. Some conspiracy theorists see this as evidence that dinosaurs were invented to support emerging scientific theories like evolution. Others support the idea that dinosaur bones are real, but that they, the scientific community, has misrepresented what they actually are: bones of recently deceased dragons. The conspiracy was further fueled by legitimate incidents involving fraudulent fossils, such as the Archaeoraptor. This particular fossil was promoted in a 1999 issue of National Geographic as a link between dinosaurs and birds, but was later found to be a composite. This fossil was actually just bones from different species that had been glued together, ultimately revealing that the specimen was a fake. The hoax led to intense scrutiny from the scientific community, and critics of mainstream paleontology have pointed to this case as evidence that the field cannot be trusted. Many of the arguments against the existence of dinosaurs also involve misunderstandings about fossilization. Conspiracists frequently question how bones could last millions of years without decaying entirely. This misunderstanding overlooks the fossilization process, where bones are replaced by minerals over time, essentially turning them into rocks rather than organic remains. The Bimini Road is a mysterious underwater rock formation near North Bimini Island in the Bahamas. Discovered in 1968 by three men, this site consists of a series of rectangular limestone blocks extending for about half a mile. The discovery of the Bimini Road sparked significant interest and debate among archaeologists, geologists, and enthusiasts. Initial speculations centered around whether the formation was a natural geological phenomenon or evidence of an ancient civilization linked to the legendary lost city of Atlantis. The Bimini Road is composed of large, flat limestone blocks that appear to be carefully aligned. These blocks vary in size, with some measuring up to 13 feet long. Geological studies suggest that the formation could date back to around 10,000 years ago, a period that coincides with the last ice age when sea levels were significantly lower. Despite extensive research, there is no consensus on whether the Bimini Road is entirely natural or a man-made structure. Some researchers propose that it could be a natural beach rock formation, fractured and shaped by erosion and geological processes. Proponents of the Atlantis theory argue that the formation is the remains of an ancient harbor or road built by a technologically advanced civilization that predated recorded history. They point to the precise alignment and rectangular shape of the blocks as evidence of human engineering. Conversely, skeptics argue that the Bimini Road is a natural formation. Studies have shown that similar formations exist in other parts of the world, where natural geological processes create structures that can be mistaken for human-made features. Carbon dating and other scientific analyses have often supported the natural formation theory, but the debate continues due to the enigmatic nature of the site. Often associated with the late inventor Stanley Meyer, has long been a subject of conspiracy theories. Stanley Meyer claimed to have developed a water fuel cell that could power a car using only water as its fuel. According to Meyer, his invention worked by splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen, and then using hydrogen as the main energy source for the vehicle. This bold claim came during a time when oil prices were skyrocketing, notably influenced by the 1973 Arab oil embargo, which made alternative energy concepts particularly attractive to the public. Meyer managed to acquire several patents for his invention and he demonstrated his technology in a modified dune buggy. Despite this, there are no verifiable videos or operational models to definitively prove that Meyer's water-powered car ever truly functioned. The technical process behind Meyer's supposed water-powered car was based on electrolysis, where water is split into its fundamental components, hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen is highly combustible, making it theoretically capable of fueling a vehicle. However, the major scientific problem lies in the energy required to separate hydrogen from water. The process consumes more energy than it releases, making it fundamentally inefficient for practical use. Meyer claimed to have overcome this problem by developing a system that required less energy to split the hydrogen than was generated during recombination. Critics noted that would have violated established scientific principles, specifically the laws of thermodynamics. According to experts, Meyer's fuel cell was examined and found to be simply using conventional electrolysis, with no new breakthrough technology. He was sued by investors, and a court ultimately found Meyer's claims to be fraudulent, resulting in a lawsuit where he was ordered to return investments made by his backers. Meyer's death in 1998 has fueled even more conspiracy theories. He died suddenly while dining at a restaurant, and according to his brother, Meyer ran outside and claimed he had been poisoned. The official cause of death, as reported by the coroner, was a cerebral aneurysm, which was consistent with his pre-existing health conditions, including high blood pressure. Nevertheless, some supporters of Meyer are convinced that he was assassinated to prevent his water fuel technology from coming to market. They point to the fact that his work could have potentially disrupted the massive profits of the oil industry. It's claimed that Meyer had refused buyout offers from interested parties and resisted external pressure from investors who wanted control over his technology. The smoking man from the X-Files is a character wrapped in conspiracy theories and universe, and it's no surprise that fans have speculated that he might be based on a real person. By way of background, as previously discussed in the series, some conspiracy theorists have speculated that Chris Carter, the creator of the show, had inside information into real-world conspiracies. The character, played by William B. Davis, appears as a sinister figure in a background scene in the first episode of the show, and his role only grew from there. His influence and power over the show's events were slowly unraveled as the X-Files developed, eventually becoming the most central antagonist. The Smoking Man, also referred to as CGB Spender or Cancer Man, has been linked to several conspiracy theories within the show. He's portrayed as being involved in numerous covert activities, including direct communications with Saddam Hussein, alien experiments, and more. He's claimed to have been the real killer of John F. Kennedy, as well as other major figures in American history. One prominent theory among fans is that the character is an amalgamation of various figures from the world of shadowy governmental affairs. The Smoking Man's actions are similar to what people often believe about members of intelligence communities or shadow governments. He manipulates events from behind the scenes, always with the purported intention of protecting the public from truths they can't handle. In an interview, Frank Spotnitz, a co-executive producer on The X-Files, explained that the Smoking Man was created as a very simply written character. Initially, William B. Davis was hired merely to linger in the background and provide an eerie presence, but his performance was so compelling that the writers decided to expand his role. Davis was eventually given dialogue, which transformed him from a mysterious extra into the central antagonist of the series. His portrayal became iconic because of the way he conveyed a sense of deep, dangerous knowledge without always needing words. This evolution of the character added to the allure, and to the belief that he was based on a real person. The combination of his powerful presence and sinister influence aligns well with people's fears about the real elites in the shadows. the smoking man's character, is also intentionally filled with ambiguity and misinformation, much like the conspiracy theories he's linked to. Throughout the series, he makes claims that aren't always verifiable within the show's universe. For instance, such as being Fox Mulder's biological father, or having a role in impregnation experiments involving Dana Scully. The intentional blurring of truth and lies within the show is meant to reflect the very nature of conspiracy theories, where bits of truth, half-truths, and outright falsehoods are all mixed together. This makes it impossible to know what's real, much like the constant questions around real-life shadow government figures and conspiracy theories. Ultimately, what you believe this character represents, from an interesting fictional portrayal of a ruler amongst the elite to an amalgam of real shadowy figures, is up to you. Meme magic is a concept that attributes influence and significance to internet memes beyond their surface-level humor. The idea revolves around memes having the potential to shape reality by spreading ideas quickly and creating a sense of collective identity. Memes are more than just funny images with captions. They act as a form of digital communication that can have a real cultural impact. This concept gained traction in online communities, where memes are treated almost like digital charms that can influence events through widespread sharing and collective belief. The phenomenon of meme magic arises from the way memes leverage humor, shared cultural references, and visual appeal to create a sense of belonging among people. Memes often contain layers of meaning that resonate with specific audiences, forming an in-group language that reinforces bonds. The repetition and adaptation of memes across different contexts amplify their influence as they evolve based on cultural trends. This process makes memes seem like they're not just responding to culture, but actively shaping it, which is where the concept of magic comes into play. The supposed effectiveness of meme magic lies in the emotional and psychological appeal of memes. Memes often evoke humor or provoke reactions that make them memorable and shareable. They work as a tool to simplify complex ideas into digestible, relatable content, which makes them more impactful than other forms of online communication. The rapid spread of memes and their tendency to create inside jokes contribute to a sense of community, giving people a way to connect through shared humor and experiences. In online spaces, meme magic has been linked to elements of modern mysticism, such as chaos magic, where symbols are believed to gain power through collective belief. Some conspiracy theorists argue that the effectiveness and power of meme magic is suppressed by elites. They argue that powerful entities, such as governments or corporate interests, fear the influence memes have on public opinion and social movements. By controlling online platforms, the elites allegedly limit the spread of memes that could threaten their power. Shadow banning, algorithm manipulation, and censorship are thought to be used to suppress meme magic. This control, they claim, prevents the masses from realizing the potential of collective creativity to challenge the status quo and influence cultural or political change. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here, just reminding you to like and subscribe and to hit the notification bell. Also, if you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to hit the share button and send my video to your friends and family. And if you want to take it to the next level, check out the Patreon or the YouTube membership and support the channel for as little as $1 a month. The conspiracy theory suggesting that the NSA created Bitcoin asserts that the U.S. government agency developed Bitcoin to serve its own interests. According to this theory, the NSA, well known for its capabilities in cryptography, may have orchestrated the development of Bitcoin as a move to create a currency under their covert control. At the heart of this theory is the National Security Agency's involvement in creating the cryptographic algorithm that Bitcoin relies on, known as SHA-256. This algorithm is fundamental to Bitcoin's proof of work consensus, which verifies transactions and secures the network. And importantly, SHA 256 was indeed developed by the NSA, making its association with Bitcoin a notable point of discussion for conspiracy theorists. A significant element often cited to support this theory is a 1996 NSA research paper titled How to Make a Mint: The Cryptography of Anonymous Digital Cash. This document discussed cryptographic cash, privacy, and digital signatures, and described a concept that resembles digital cryptocurrencies. The paper, authored by NSA cryptographers Lori Law, Susan Sabet, and Jerry Salinas, explored electronic currency and distributed frameworks for anonymity. The timing of this paper provides circumstantial support for those who believe Bitcoin is part of an extended NSA experiment to monopolize global currency. Conspiracy theorists argue that Bitcoin's supposed anonymity might actually be part of a sophisticated NSA surveillance mechanism. Whistleblower Edward Snowden, in his 2013 leaks, revealed extensive NSA surveillance programs, including capabilities to track and monitor individuals' online activities. These revelations provided fertile ground for the theory that the NSA could potentially trace transactions using undisclosed methods or backdoors within the SHA 256 algorithm. Notably, SHA 256 has been examined by some of the world's top cryptographers, without any backdoors being discovered. The association with the NSA continues to fuel suspicion. The Satoshi Nakamoto mystery also plays a crucial role in this theory. Satoshi, the pseudonymous creator of Bitcoin, disappeared from public view in 2011, shortly after the currency started gaining traction. The complete anonymity of Satoshi, despite numerous attempts to uncover their identity, has led some to speculate he is a conglomeration of figures associated with the NSA. Another aspect of this theory is the idea that Bitcoin, through the Satoshi wallet, could allow the NSA or US government to manipulate global financial systems. The wallet controlled by Satoshi Nakamoto holds about 1 million Bitcoins, which remain untouched. Theoretically, these coins could crash the market if dumped in one large transaction, wreaking havoc on economies heavily invested in Bitcoin. Proponents of the theory believe that this nuclear option provides a covert tool for the United States to assert economic control by destabilizing Bitcoin. The concept of the witches' Sabbath has a rich and complex history that stretches back to medieval Europe. It was believed to be a gathering where witches convened to worship the devil, engage in forbidden rites, and practice malevolent magic. These nocturnal assemblies were thought to occur in secluded places like forests, mountains, or abandoned ruins, shrouded in mystery and fear. During the late Middle Ages and the early modern period, fear of witchcraft intensified. The publication of the Malleus Maleficarum in 1487 by Heinrich Kramer played a pivotal role in shaping perceptions of witchcraft and the witches' Sabbath. This treatise provided detailed descriptions of witches' practices, including the Sabbaths, and became a guide for inquisitors and witch hunters across Europe. The Malleus Maleficarum insisted that witches were predominantly, though not exclusively, women, asserting that female susceptibility to demonic influence stemmed from inherent moral weaknesses. Kramer described the Sabbath as a place where witches renounced their Christian faith, paid homage to the devil, and participated in satanic rites. Confessions obtained during witch trials often followed a similar pattern. Under extreme duress, accused individuals recounted attending Sabbaths, where they engaged in heinous acts. These narratives, though coerced, reinforced the belief in a widespread diabolical conspiracy and justified the continuation of witch hunts. Artists like Francisco Goya portrayed the witches' Sabbath in his works, capturing the dark and ominous atmosphere associated with these gatherings. Regional folklore added unique elements to the concept of the witches' Sabbath. In Central Europe, it was associated with the Brocken Mountain in Germany, where witches were believed to meet on Walpurgis Night. Notably, this event honors Saint Walpurga, who was successful in converting the local tribal populations to Christianity, as well as having them denounce witchcraft. In Scotland, witches were said to conjure storms at their Sabbaths for the purposes of running merchant ships up against the rocks. The witches and their minions would then loot the ship for its wealth and also to obtain what I will politely call reagents from the fallen sailors. Use your imagination. These seamen were used for all their parts, so to speak. Such stories highlight how local events and fears could be incorporated into the broader narrative of witchcraft. By the 17th century, skepticism about the reality of the witches' Sabbath began to emerge. Thinkers challenged the existence of witchcraft and the validity of the Sabbath narratives. In modern times, the witches' Sabbath has been reinterpreted within neo-pagan and Wiccan movements. Practitioners often reinterpret the Sabbath positively. These gatherings celebrate nature, spirituality, and communal bonds rather than malevolent and evil events. Gerald Gardner, considered the founder of modern Wicca, incorporated elements of supposed historical witchcraft practices into the religion's rituals. But back to traditional witches' Sabbaths for one moment. Some scholars argue that these gatherings were misinterpretations of pre-Christian fertility rites and festivals. Other scholars have proposed theories about a secret pagan cult that survived Christianization, though such theories are generally considered to be untrue by mainstream academics. Some conspiracy theorists propose that the existence of legitimate witches' Sabbaths prior to modern times have been suppressed. These theorists generally approach this from one of two angles. The first angle is that the existence of the witches' Sabbath has been suppressed because the elites themselves participate in and draw power from these ceremonies. Others propose these activities were suppressed by the elite because they didn't want people to know they could have independent power outside the existing religious power structures. Under this theory, witchcraft is a powerful force for liberation from sometimes oppressive traditions. The conspiracy theory that fossil fuels are actually renewable revolves around several core beliefs and interpretations of geology, industry, and history. According to this theory, fossil fuels like crude oil, natural gas, and coal are not, as conventionally understood, finite resources formed over millions of years from decomposed organic material. Instead, proponents argue that these fuels are constantly replenished through processes occurring deep within the earth, making them effectively renewable. A key aspect of the theory is the idea that the term fossil fuels was coined by powerful figures in the oil industry, such as John D. Rockefeller, to create an artificial sense of scarcity. This scarcity, it is suggested, was meant to keep prices high and control the market, allowing a handful of powerful entities to profit immensely from energy production. Supporters of this narrative point out that the term fossil fuels was used to make people believe these energy sources were rare and irreplaceable, thereby justifying high costs and monopolistic practices. Some advocates of the theory argue that evidence of oil reserves seemingly refilling over time supports their claims. There are cases where previously depleted oil wells have been observed to contain new quantities of oil, which proponents interpret as proof that oil is being continually generated by ongoing processes. They often cite the idea of abiotic oil, a theory which posits that oil is formed from inorganic substances rather than decomposed biological matter. According to this view, hydrocarbons originate deep in the Earth's crust through chemical reactions involving carbon deposits that have no biological origin. This interpretation suggests that oil is not millions of years old and that new oil can be produced within the Earth on a much shorter timescale. The geological processes that allegedly create oil, according to the conspiracy, involve complex reactions under conditions of high pressure and temperature. Proponents often claim that there is a vast network of interconnected reservoirs deep beneath the Earth's surface that continually replenish the deposits we extract. The theory implies that current technology and exploration practices have only scratched the surface of what is available, and that much of the Earth's oil reserves remain untapped or deliberately undisclosed. Supporters of this conspiracy also claim that the idea of oil scarcity is used to control global geopolitics. Since the major players in the oil industry are often closely linked to governments and international institutions, the scarcity narrative is seen as a tool to influence foreign policy and economic stability. Further conspiracy theorists argue that this even gives justification for certain military actions, like the 2003 Iraq War. By convincing the public that oil is a limited resource, these entities are thought to justify the need for conflicts over oil-rich regions, ensuring continued dominance over global energy supplies. Despite widespread concerns about peak oil in the 20th century, when it was predicted that oil production would decline as reserves were depleted, new oil discoveries have continued. Further production rates have often exceeded expectations, and oil production has continued to increase in an upward trajectory. The theory interprets this as proof that oil fields are refilling naturally, suggesting an ongoing process rather than a finite supply that is gradually being exhausted. Debunkers argue that the conspiracy that fossil fuels are renewable hinges on an overly simplistic view of how these fuels form. According to them, it ignores the distinct requirements of time, pressure, and specific geological conditions necessary for the transformation of organic material into hydrocarbons. The amount of time required, millions of years, is crucial. Current consumption rates are such that we are depleting reservoirs without any meaningful possibility of natural replenishment. They emphasize that the underlying science of how fossil fuels are made contradicts any narrative suggesting they are renewable on a timescale relevant to human society. Jack Parsons was a paradoxical figure who seemed to straddle the realms of science and the occult with an ease that bewildered many of his contemporaries, to put it mildly. Born Marvel Whiteside Parsons in 1914, he grew up in Pasadena, California, and quickly developed an interest in explosives and science fiction. This fascination would lead him to co-found both the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or JPL, laying the foundation for modern rocketry as well as NASA. But what makes Parsons' story all the more intriguing is how his devotion to the mystical practices of Aleister Crowley coexisted with his scientific brilliance. Parsons' journey into rocketry began as a young man, experimenting with explosives in his backyard, and later joining a group of like-minded enthusiasts. This group conducted research at Caltech's Guggenheim Aeronautical Laboratory. Though initially dismissed as a fringe interest, Parsons and his colleagues made major breakthroughs in developing rocket propellants. During World War II, their efforts gained traction, leading to the formation of JPL, which eventually became an indispensable player in the American space program. At the same time, Parsons was revolutionizing the field of rocketry. He was delving deeper into occultism. His introduction to Aleister Crowley's Thelema philosophy, which emphasized personal will and magical rituals, came in the early 1940s. He quickly rose through the ranks of the Ordo Templi Orientis, Crowley's magical order, and became the leader of its lodge in Pasadena. Parsons didn't just dabble in occultism, he fully embraced it. He saw no conflict between his rocket work and his occult beliefs. In fact, he viewed both as part of the same pursuit, to transcend earthly limitations, whether through technology or mysticism. This dual life of science and magic often led to scandal. Parsons would chant invocations to deities like Pan before rocket tests, blending his professional work with his spiritual practices. His home, known as the parsonage, became notorious for wild parties and occult rituals, attracting a mix of scientists, occultists, and science fiction writers. Parsons and company embarked on a series of rituals called the Babylon Working, intended to summon a divine entity called Babylon. Parsons believed these rituals would herald a new age of freedom and self-expression. Despite his brilliance, Parsons' personal life spiraled out of control. His involvement in the occult, combined with his reputation for debauchery, made him an increasingly problematic figure in the eyes of the establishment. By 1944, Parsons had been forced out of the JPL, and his rocketry career effectively ended. However, he remained committed to his magical pursuits, even as his financial situation worsened. The end of Parsons' life was as dramatic as the rest. In 1952, at the age of 37, he died in a mysterious explosion in his home laboratory while working on special effects for films. Some speculated it was intentional. Others thought it might be a magical ritual gone wrong, or simply a tragic accident due to Parsons' careless handling of explosives. Parsons has the unique distinction of being recognized as both one of the leading American occultists and of being one of the leading figures in early American rocketry. The Tanganyika laughter epidemic was the strange phenomenon that began on January 30th, 1962, at a mission-run boarding school for girls in the village of Kashasha in Tanzania. The episode started with 3 girls, but quickly spread throughout the school, causing widespread panic and confusion. Within a few hours, nearly half of the 159 students were affected, exhibiting symptoms of uncontrollable laughter, crying, and restlessness. The school was forced to close on March 18, 1962. The closure, however, did not contain the epidemic. Instead, it spread to Shamba, a village where several of the students lived, affecting 217 people. From there, it continued to spread to other nearby villages, infecting hundreds of people over several months. The symptoms of the epidemic were varied, but had common threads. Victims experienced episodes of uncontrollable laughter lasting from a few minutes to several hours. This was often accompanied by crying, pain, fainting, respiratory problems, rashes, and attacks of screaming. Despite extensive medical testing, no physical cause was found for these symptoms. Doctors and researchers were baffled, as there were no signs of infection, toxins, or other physical explanations. The epidemic's impact was significant. Several schools in the region had to close down temporarily, as students and staff were affected. By the time the epidemic faded out in mid-1962, around 1,000 people were reported to have been affected. There are several theories about what caused the laughter epidemic. The most widely accepted explanation is that it was a case of mass hysteria, which can occur in a high-stress environment. The stress can be psychological, social, or a combination of factors. In the case of the Tanganyika laughter epidemic, several factors might have contributed to the outbreak. The students at the mission school were under significant pressure. They were living away from their families, adapting to strict school routines, and facing the challenges of adolescence. Additionally, the region was undergoing social and political changes following Tanganyika's recent independence from British colonial rule in 1961. This period of transition may have contributed to heightened stress levels among the population. Another theory suggests that the laughter epidemic could have been a form of social mimicry, where individuals unconsciously imitate the behaviors of others around them. In tightly knit communities, such behaviors can spread quickly. The initial laughter episodes among the schoolgirls may have triggered a chain reaction, with others mimicking the behavior either consciously or unconsciously. The laughter epidemic could have been an extreme manifestation of this cultural expression, amplified by the stressful conditions and the close-knit nature of the communities involved. Some conspiracy theorists argue that this event may have been a psychological test conducted on these students. While the epidemic eventually subsided, the exact cause of the epidemic remains a mystery. On November 29, 1980, Granger Taylor, a mechanical genius from Duncan, British Columbia in Canada, disappeared under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind a cryptic note. Taylor's note claimed he was embarking on a journey aboard an alien spaceship and would return in 42 months. This bizarre case has since fueled numerous theories and remains one of Canada's most intriguing unsolved mysteries. Granger Taylor was well known locally for his mechanical skills, with many describing his aptitude as genius level. He restored a World War II fighter plane and even built a replica of a spaceship using 2 satellite dishes and other parts. Taylor's fascination with UFOs and space grew into an obsession, leading him to spend countless hours in his homemade spaceship, claiming he communicated with extraterrestrials. On the night of his disappearance, a severe storm hit Vancouver Island. Taylor left a note on his parents' bedroom door, stating he was boarding an alien spaceship and would be gone for 42 months. He also left all his earthly possessions to them for safekeeping during this period. Granger was last seen driving his 1972 light blue Datsun truck, which has never been found. There are a number of theories which have swirled about since his disappearance. The most sensational theory is that Taylor was indeed taken by aliens. His note and prior statements to friends about communicating with extraterrestrials suggest he genuinely believed in this possibility. Some believe he may have been experiencing delusions or was influenced by popular culture at the time, which was rife with UFO sightings and alien abduction stories. Others believe that he had attracted the attention of otherworldly beings due to his advanced mechanical abilities and aptitudes. Another theory posits that Taylor's disappearance was linked to mental health issues. Observers speculate that he might have been suffering from undiagnosed schizophrenia or other mental health conditions, which could explain his intense obsession with aliens. Another theory states that he may have ended himself by his own hand. The discovery of truck parts and human bones in 1986 at a blast site on Mount Prevost has led some to conclude that Taylor might have done this using dynamite. Notably, he was known to have a strong interest in explosives and access to dynamite. The remains found at the site were never conclusively identified as his due to the lack of DNA testing at the time, but clothing fragments were potentially a match. Another plausible theory is that Taylor accidentally died while handling dynamite, possibly intending to create a dramatic effect to simulate his departure on an alien spaceship. Another version of this theory suggests that he genuinely believed that blowing up his truck was a signal to the aliens to come get him. Those who support this theory suggest this was his version of hailing an intergalactic taxi ride for the next 42 months. Despite extensive searches and media coverage, no conclusive evidence about Taylor's fate has emerged. His family, particularly his parents, held out hope for his return until their respective deaths. The official investigation was closed after the remains and truck parts were found, but the case remains a topic of speculation and debate among UFO enthusiasts. Notably, despite the closure of the investigation, the authorities did not conclusively find the remains to be that of Granger. If you liked this video, please do me a huge favor and click like and subscribe, and also click the share button and send it to anyone who you think may enjoy it. Shout out to my patrons Iced Mocha, Kurt the Squirt, Monoxide Wendigo, Jeffer Metcalf, Z-Volts, Courtney Hammett, Out of Gray's Mind, Cap, Dionysus, Silba Rose, Franz Tech, Unknown Delusions, Faye, Jack Russell, Boomslang, Spookiest Becky, Vespertine, Metanova, Will Roan, Crab Nebula, and Blasphemous.